Perfect. So welcome, collaborating school districts. This is a continuation of 3 because we didn't get everything done. And on September 22nd, and then we're going to look first at delivery of instruction in terms of opportunities to respond, but then we are going to look at monitoring and feedback, the other aspects of delivery of instruction. But throughout this, our motto is how well you teach equals how well they learn. And the reverse is also true. How well they learn is directly related to how well we taught. And so I wonder if I was in your school district right now in Ohio, if the trees would be this color. This is the latest we've had color on our trees in Oregon that I can remember. They're still very green, so, but we'll still be working together when everything will be in color outside of my window. So this is, of course, looking at explicit instruction. And I'm so glad that we have people involved in literacy and reading instruction, writing instruction, but art instruction and math instruction and science instruction and intervention, because this applies to all of us. So like in our past webinars, you're going to participate and you do need paper nearby, and it will be helpful if you have this response sheet, because we're going to answer questions on it a number of times. And I would like you on one piece of paper to write down best practices, anything that is a aha takeaway moment from today, you're going to record. And at the end of the day, you're going to add that to the chat box for feedback to me on what is useful. So I've written best practices at the top of the piece of paper I'm keeping nearby so I can add anything. And we will read together, but muted. I'll read and stop and have you say the next word, but muted. And we will also use the response sheet, particularly for agree and disagree. And we might hold up fingers to show an answer on a multiple choice. And you're going to put written answers in the chat box. So the chat box will be used just for 2 purposes. One, when I ask you to put in answers, and number 2, to put in any questions that you want at the end. So always we have just to remind ourselves what we're about. We are about learning and using the teaching that allows us to get to that learning. So that is the theme through all of our webinars, is the relationship of teaching to learning, teaching to learning, teaching to learning, and teaching to learning, and teaching to learning. And that is what we're going to continue to explore today. And now, we did this last time, and I'm going to do it every time we meet in the future. So we have after today 2 on vocabulary, 2 on comprehension, but we will always start with just keeping in mind the big ideas of the elements of explicit instruction that would be useful across all of our teaching. So you need a piece of paper for our 2-minute timing. Last time I gave you a preview. This time I'm just going to have you retrieve it. So you'll see that I wrote down on my paper, content, design, delivery, and practice. And so you're going to add the elements of instruction, and you'll have 2 minutes. Then we'll give feedback. You have this slide in all of the handouts you've gotten. So if you don't get them all today, you can study in your PLC and then come back next time and get them down. Now, why might I do this? Well, because it's actually from a research study that looked at, if I want students to remember information, should we practice it a lot in one session, or should we practice it and have it spaced over time? Well, spaced over time, definitely one. And if you had to retrieve it from memory, that significantly increased your retention of the information. So that's why we are doing this activity. All right, you have 2 minutes. I'm going to give you some hints. Okay, like content. Oh, I'm going to focus on critical content, or design. I'm going to focus on organized and focused lessons and then attributes of it. Delivery, I'll give you a hint. The first one is I'm going to gain frequent responses, the big idea from last time. Already I have my timer set for 2 minutes. And not to worry if you don't get something, because if you try to retrieve it and then get immediate feedback, that is what's going to promote learning. So it's a good thing, even if you have to struggle to think of it. And everybody begin. Hope you can hear that. That says stop right there. So there's 13 total. So put the total that you wrote down at the top. Now, if I went on without feedback, then that would dampen any learning that occurs. Basically, if we ask for a response, it's followed by giving feedback. Now, this little chart shows these elements. And one thing that is useful is, in some cases, teaching students how to tell a story if they have to remember things. And I'm going to give some examples in vocabulary where that would be very relevant. So, for example, I could say this. Before I start teaching, I have to select the content, and I need to focus on what is most critical content. So most of my instructional energy and effort is going to what is going to make the most difference in the future for my students. But I'd better break it down into obtainable pieces so that they don't have cognitive overload, so that they can be successful. And then when I organize my lessons, the lessons that make the most difference in terms of students' attainment are very organized. They have a structure to them, and they are focused so that anybody walking into my class would say, oh, I know exactly what she is teaching. And embedded in that lesson, I would tell them the goal of the lesson. I could call it a target or a goal or a learning intention, but it would be repeated throughout the lesson and also reviewed at the end. And if we had any knowledge necessary for today's lesson that we've learned in the past, that's a pre-skill for today's lesson, a concept they need to know, I am going to review it. And then when I teach, I do it, demonstration, we do it, guided practice if they needed ongoing support, and you do it, a check for understanding before they do independent work. And this is what we're working on today and last time, the delivery. And the biggest ideas in delivery is I need to get frequent responses. I need to carefully look and listen at the students' responses. I need to give feedback to them, immediate feedback. That's affirmative praise or informative, what they could do to improve their performance. And I need to have a perky, brisk pace. And practice just means judicious, enough practice to move it to permanent memory. So that is exactly what we want. All right, but remember that by practicing it that way as a story, we as human beings are likely to have better retention of it. So you can actually practice it that way. And then when you are writing down your 13, you could tell that story to yourself as you wrote it down. Well, so what we are going to do, and I just want to be certain that I didn't lose you because I kind of did. Loretta, you're still seeing the PowerPoint.
We couldn't see any of the PowerPoint.
That's why I need to have you yell at me. Okay.
I wasn't sure we were supposed to be seeing a PowerPoint yet.
Well, that's okay. But that's because that he has not made me a host. And so someone who is needs to make me a host, I'm so sorry. And you're welcome to yell. Just say Archer. And any of you can do that. Okay. And nope, and I'm not a host yet, so I can't show it.
Hang on just a second.
All right. You guys are very, very sweet to wait a moment. And next time, I want a whole choir of you shouting out, Archer, because I thought I'd already shared it. So I am so sorry. So you need to get control, Loretta, so we can make me a host. I can't do it to myself. All right, maybe now. All right, thank you. And we won't forget to get that up next time from the very beginning. That's why I had a check on it, but I didn't have an accurate check. Okay, now you see it. All right, and yeah, last time we looked at, let's see here. We looked at active participation and we didn't quite get done. So we're going to just pick it up right there. So you didn't even see our introductory slides. You did not see this. You did not see this. Please, next time, don't let it go so long. Oh my goodness, that's embarrassing to me. So, okay. Well, we just did that. That's what I showed you, but you didn't see it. So we were particularly working on frequent responses, opportunities to respond. This is the same PowerPoint because we didn't quite finish it in terms of opportunities to respond. And so we are going to look at right where we left off. We were talking about different ways, and we're first going to review, and then we're going to look at written responses and verbal responses. So we talked about verbal responses, and most critical one was having everybody say it. And so I could be teaching you and I could say, look at this word. What word? Everyone. Why would I call on one person when we could all in a great, beautiful choir say it together? But I might also use it, not just academically, but also to keep you in the lesson. So I might say, open up to slide 31. What slide? 31. Now that's not an academic response, but it serves another purpose of keeping you in the lesson. So I could have you say things together, but I have to have some signal to get you to say it together. Now I'm going to skip slides because this is just a quick recap of what we did last time. Then we went to partners, and the critical things were that in partners to work, they need to be structured, where the teacher assigns the partners, gives them some destination so that you can say, ones tell your partner, twos tell your partner, or A's tell your partner, B's tell your partner, so no one dominates, and that you need to give both partners a job. So there was this little chart we looked at to say, I might say, ones, tell your partner the answer, use a sentence stem. Twos, then tell if you agree or disagree. Then we looked at discussions, and particularly for our teachers in the upper intermediate grades who might have a discussion. And I want you to see if you can remember some of the research results that improved significantly discussions. Okay, let's see if you had some of them. Number one was have a good prompt for the discussion, something you've already prepared, something that you're going to engage them in. Number two, and this was the biggest one, particularly for our third, fourth, and fifth grade teachers, having them actually write down their talking points before the discussion. And then, because some students are shy, don't enter in the discussion, we would have everybody tell their partners their talking points. So even if they don't enter the discussion, they've already entered the discussion. Teaching them sentence starters so that they would have civil conversations during discussions, and rules of conduct. So you're listening to your partner, you're listening to your classmates, you're looking at your classmates, and you might put them in small groups. So this checklist for discussions really needs to be followed, but particularly good question, write down the talking points, share with your partner before the discussion. Then we looked at individual turns. And the biggest idea is to eliminate, if not significantly reduce, volunteers. And that is, of all the things from the research on active participation, that's the biggest idea, is getting rid of volunteers. Because again, highest performing students, most assertive students, most proficient in English students will be the ones responding. So basically, my motto there is we end up teaching the best and leaving the rest. And so then we looked at strategies for calling on individual turns with the big idea that I'm going to have you say it to your partner before I call on you. So you've had a chance to set yourself up for an answer before you are called on, so you have more success. Well, that is almost exactly where we left off on written responses. And so we can have the students say things correlate to partners, to discussion, and we can call on individuals. but we can also have them write things down. And when we look at that research, there are many ways that we could have students respond. We could ask a question, they could write the answer. We could have them write down everything that they've learned about a subject. We did a brain drain last time. We can have them write 2 sentences. Now, those are both ideas from a website that is called www.retrievalpractice.org. And definitely a website to follow up on. And we could give them a sentence starter and have them complete it. We could give them a writing frame and have them fill it in. We could have them learn how to take 2-column notes and do a written response. We could have them highlight or underline as a written response. We can have them brainstorm, do a quick write everything you know about this topic, a quick draw. I was working with a class that was learning about plants and the reproductive process in a plant, and they had every day to draw the part of that plant. And they got better and better and better at recalling and labeling those parts. We could have them step into our class and do a do now. Our math teachers do that all the time. Here's some problems that we're going to start our day with. Here's a question in language arts. They could write an answer. We could have them write down an exit ticket. There's just many, many written responses that we could do. But here is the biggest idea that came out of the research on written responses. Remember how much I love holdups. Hold up our response sheet, hold up our fingers, hold up our response card, because I can monitor everybody and I can give feedback to students. Well, I'm betting that in many of your classes, you have whiteboards, you have slates that you are utilizing. And you give a directive, write this math problem down, write this spelling word down, write what is the punctuation needed for this sentence, and write down what color will result from us mixing these 2 colors, write it on your whiteboard. And the major thing you have to remember about whiteboards or slates is to not have them hold it up until you say, show me, because many students will hold it up right away and other students will simply mimic their responses. That goes for all holdups. Fingers for an answer, not until you say, show me. Response sheets not held up until you say, show me. But again, what's the benefit of all holdups? 1, everyone is doing it, so it has high equity. And number 2, all holdups allow you to hold everybody accountable and to give feedback to everyone. Now, what other kinds of things might we do? Well, we could have response cards where the written responses are on it and the students hold it up. So they could be response cards that have generic answers. Now, if you were to go, usually in October, for more than 10 years, I've spent October in Queensland, Australia, training teachers there. And so if you go to any of the classes in Queensland, the students have a ring and they have colored cards on it. Yes and no, true and false, 1 color for A, B, C, D, or 1, 2, 3, 4, agree, disagree. And the teacher will say, take out your ring. I'm going to ask you questions, and today it is with true and false. Now we can do the same thing with our simple response sheet, where the students put at the top what kind of question it will be. But you can also have response cards that they hold up that are specific information. Now, just this week, I was teaching a group of students reviewing punctuation. and it was virtual. So they didn't have response cards, but I simply said, you have a piece of paper in front of you, and watch me. I'm going to put a period down. I'm going to put a question mark. I'm going to put a explanation mark, and I'm going to put a comma. And so I held that up for them. They put it on their paper. I put up, we did in punctuation first. I put up a sentence, we read it. They touched what was the in punctuation, and then they showed it. So it doesn't have to be a card. It can be as simple as a piece of paper with the answers, but I am going to have more responders with response cards or virtual response cards than if I just have them say the answer or say the answer to their partners. So don't forget to use lots of holdups, but have them put their finger on it, then have them hold it up. So we could, for written responses, use response cards, response sheets, responses on paper. We could use slates. But here is one of the things that I have been observing. And it goes to all of the videos that I have watched in your very own state. That the standards that are in Ohio speak to writing as you would write by the end of 5th grade, a narrative story that you would be able to write an argument, a multi-paragraph argument, and that you could write a multi-paragraph informative essay. All right, but here's what we're learning from writing. And this is my motto for written responses. Short writing often, not just long writing seldom. That students could write down short answers on paper. They can write sentences on paper. They can write paragraphs. We don't have to wait till we do a whole story or argument or a whole report. We need to do those things, but every day in every class, we need to read and write and speak if we're going to get good at those skills. So I just want to give you some ideas to follow up on short writing often. They could answer comprehension questions, and we could scaffold it with sentence starters. And we had a question like, what are the 3 branches of the federal government? And the sentence starter was, the 3 branches of the federal government are. We might have notes that have blanks and they could fill it in. We could have guided notes. And we could have sentence writing routines, which I'm going to recommend that particularly our 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade teachers think about adding this to your library. And the references on your papers later. The Writing Revolution, the best book I've ever found in terms of giving us structured ideas to improve writing. And chapter 2 is routines for writing sentences. And we might use writing frames to help them more quickly write a paragraph. So many of your students, because they are in elementary school, might need some scaffolding to support them in making written responses. So there is the Writing Revolution. And I did just on Tuesday, I did a all day for Hawaii on the Writing Revolution, chapter 2 on sentences. So let me just introduce a few of the activities you'd find in that. One of them is one that I like very much. If I was teaching science or social studies or reading in 3rd or 4th grade, I would use because, but, so. So this is an example from a day that I was teaching a reading program called Wonders. And then 4th grade, the students had read Wonders of the Night Sky. And I'm going to use this example later for another purpose. And they were taught that after they had read something on the previous day, when they came into class, and they had this twice a week, they had the sentence starter from what they had read, followed by because, followed by but, and followed by so. And their job was to copy and complete this. Well, the students had been taught how to do this through I do it, we do it, you do it. And so they had very good answers. And so this was 3 edited examples from students. The Aurora Borealis is an amazing light show because, so the connection here is, conjunction is because, and they have to say why. Why electric charges cause colorful bands of light. Or the Aurora Borealis is an amazing light show, but it only occurs every few years. Or the Aurora Borealis is an amazing light show, so, and then we have a result, we can travel to the North Pole to observe the northern lights. So these are ones that were edited after the students needed a little bit of feedback to fix theirs up. But this is the kind of short writing that could become uniform in the classroom. Like we did it every Tuesday and Thursday so that the students knew how to do it, and it would give them a chance to reflect on what they've written, comprehension. It would give them a chance to rehearse the information they had learned, as well as write. So this is just an example to show you it could be done in social studies or science, a content area class. Here's another example from Writing Revolution that could be the kind of written activity that we repeated that would support comprehension, content that we're learning, and writing. So here the students are given a start sentence, and on the screen they would see this and then the questioning words, but not the notes. They would have to write down when it happened, in this case, where it happened, why, and then put it all together in an expanded sentence. So this is the kind of short writing that would be so beneficial to your students. So this is just another example. What they saw on the screen, they had a start sentence, and it reflected what they'd already read, in this case, a poem in their reading program. And they had to say, when did this happen? Why did it happen? And put it all together. So here's one child's answer. Okay, so short writing, often, not just long writing, seldom. I'm going to send you a separate set of PowerPoints that we used to support writing a paragraph summary. Now, we are not having a session on writing, but if you were to look back at what kind of writing, particularly in the intermediate grades, had the best possibility of improving, again, comprehension, knowledge, content knowledge, and writing, it would be writing a summary. I'll never forget one day I had a principal from an elementary school come up to me and said, Anita, I want you to tell me, not a lot, I want to tell me one thing that we should have our intermediate teachers writing that will make a difference. And I had just read a summary of research on writing that was done by Steve Graham and Dolores Perrin. And basically they said, number one, write a summary, 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 write a summary. But the students might need some support on how to organize it. So you might consider a writing frame where they would copy and then add to it, copy and add to it. So they would learn the structure, and then that could be faded out. So this is an example from a 5th grade lesson I was teaching, and we were reading about decomposers. It was a thriller. copied and added to it, copied and added to it. But they're learning also not just the structure of a topic sentence and related details, but how to use transition words within the paragraph. Or maybe they're going to write a summary of a narrative story. So let's say I'm a third grade teacher and I say, write a summary of a story. Well, most of the kids would do this. They would say, well, first this happened, then 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 this happened, the end. But what we might want them to think about is, what was the title? What was the setting? Who was the main character? What was their problem? How did they resolve it? And what happened in the end? So we might give them, and this is one day I taught that, and this is from a third grade class, from a story we read, and we used this writing frame again and again and again, but then faded it out when the students were more competent. But I'm going to send you and conclude other ones that might be useful to you, like you watch a video and you give them sentence starters. Now, what's one of the benefits here? Not only does it help them with the structure, but it gets them going. That's what we found, was that students, particularly poor writers, had a lot of trouble just getting it going. And so they start by, although I already knew that, and then they say about the topic what they already knew. I learned some new facts from the video titled, and they write the title in. I learned this, I all discovered that. Another fact I learned was, however, the most important, interesting thing I became aware of was. So this is one that I did actually about Portland, Oregon. In fact, I put this in here because if you were with me in Portland, Oregon tonight, at about 6:30, we would walk 3 blocks from here, and there will be hundreds and hundreds of people on the school grass waiting for the Vox swifts, a teeny tiny bird that it is the only teeny tiny songbird that cannot perch. So it has to fly. It cannot perch. And so it goes into, it used to go into old growth forest trees, but now we don't have them as much. So they have adopted a huge chimney above this school. In fact, the schools really made it their mission to adopt the Vox swifts so they don't turn on any heat, doesn't matter how cold it is, until they're gone in mid-October. So this is a compare and contrast, an explanation. There's one that I did in Michigan, and there is one I did on recycling and argument. All right, but the idea is to have the kids write. And we don't do enough writing, and we can't wait to do a long report. We've got to write and write and write some more. So I hope that you saw one idea there that you could do, but a simple thing as you ask, you have a written question on the screen, and they have a sentence stem, and they write it on paper or on their white board of their slate, so that they're writing. All right, now, so action. But be certain that you're writing down your best practices, because when we get done here, you're going to put the kinds of responses that we looked at, from verbal responses to written responses to action responses. Which ones might you add to your repertoire? Okay. So action responses. And the action responses could be as simple as saying to a kindergarten child, put your finger on the letter A. It could be point to something. It could be make a gesture. For example, when I was teaching right before the pandemic, I was teaching vocabulary, and the students needed to know submerge and emerge, submerge and emerge. We're going to find that when we talk about vocabulary, one whole body of knowledge of research would show that adding gestures, using gestures, made a huge difference. And the students could utilize hand signals, such as answer number 3 is correct. They could use facial expressions. So let's look at some of the specific gestures. So I just taught you submerge and emerge. So everybody, wherever you are, don't open your cameras, but do it. So you might add submerge and emerge. I need to be feeling you, submerge and emerge. We might have students add gestures of this sort. So everybody, wherever you are, standing up, standing up, standing up, standing up, standing up. Loretta, you're the one I can see, so standing up. So I was teaching students writing a narrative, and when I looked at their stories, there was no paragraphing. So I had to teach them about how to make a paragraph, how to add paragraphs to it. So you're going to be my students in 5th grade. So we have already learned how to put paragraphs when we have informational paragraphs, that we had a topic sentence and details, topic sentence and details, topic sentence and details. And we have a new topic sentence, we added a paragraph. But in a story, it is very different. So we're going to practice today, but first we're going to learn about when to add a paragraph to a story. So if I am writing a story, my turn first, and there is a change in the speaker. If there is a change, and this is going to be a window, if there is a change in the setting, we add a new paragraph. If there is a change in the situation, we add a new paragraph. Pretend you have a watch on. If there is a change in the time, we add a paragraph. Okay, so let's do the gestures as we do this. So as we write a story, if there is a change in the speaker, if there is a change in the setting, if there's a change in the situation, if there is a change in the time, we add a paragraph. Let's do it faster. If there is a change in the speaker, if there's a change in the setting, if there's a change in the situation, if there's a change in the time, we add a paragraph. Well, it felt good to stand up too, but are your students going to be better able to remember it if we add gestures? Absolutely. We could add facial expressions. So wherever you are, be certain you are doing it. And so be my students. This word is despondent. Say it with me, despondent. When someone is very, very, very sad, and it doesn't look like things are going to get better, we say they are despondent. That they are what? They are despondent. So get ready to show me despondent and not despondent. Okay, and so let's say that there was a hurricane and everything was destroyed. It was going to be very difficult to be replaced. You would feel how? Despondent. So with your face and your body, show me what despondent looks like. Show me now, not despondent. Show me despondent. Show me not despondent. So there, we could use gestures in terms of facial expressions to make a difference. What other kind of gestures could we use? Well, I know that some of you already use fist to 5. And I put here the source of the field testing on that strategy. And our STEM teacher might find it very useful to get a take in the middle of an instructional lesson on students' understanding. And so this is 5. I know it so well, I can explain it to anyone. I got it. I can teach it to someone else. Versus 1, I'm really beginning. I really need more instruction. I need to have you explain that again. A very useful thing for our math teachers, our science teachers particularly, because at any moment, the students might lose a little bit in terms of their understanding. But these are other ways that we could have them respond. Well, let's do one more, and this is a holdup that is so useful. So pretend. Students, here are 3 words that we have learned. Number 1, and the word is, yes, compulsory. Number 2, intention, yes. And number 3, reluctant. I'm going to tell you about a word, form the number on the table, and when I say show me, put it up in the air. So if you have a plan, what word might I be thinking of that goes with having a plan? And high in the air, show me. And the word is intention. So we have verbal responses, we have written responses, and we have action. And as we looked at the data last time, the actual type of response appears not to be as critical as the number of responses that engage the students and keep them in the lesson, and allow us, of course, to monitor their responses and give them feedback. So here's what I would like you to do. And I'm just going to hop back here for a moment. It's going to let me. There we go. I'm going to put up this again, just our little chart of different possibilities. And I want you to put in the chat box the methods that you might use to gain active participation that you could add to your repertoire. Let me find this again. This is the seminal review here. Okay, that was a video we watched. Okay, I'm hoping that it is. Okay. Well, I'm not going to find it with ease, I can tell you that. Let's see if I can go back. No. Okay, let me see if it's right here. There is a nice chart of all the things that we looked at. Interesting. There we go. Should be right. Okay, well, we're not going to spend any time on that, but you're going to put in the chat box of the ideas that we covered. Maybe you say, I'm going to work on improving discussions. I am going to, I like the idea of because, but, so. I am going to include more use of partners and have them structured. So you're going to add 2 things to the chat box of things that you could utilize in your own class and add to it. And I'm hoping that you'll take both of these handouts from today and last time and also talk about it at your PLC. So you're putting those in the chat box while I'm pulling up our next PowerPoint. And so just want to check out. Now you're going to be with me, Loretta, so you can tell me if you see this on the screen. We're not going to make that mistake again. Yay, thank you, Loretta. Okay, you're putting your ideas in the chat box. I'm going to join you in a moment. Excellent. Okay, so we have many people, so let's see how many answers we can get in there. Okay, so Carol said, I am going to utilize hand signals. Sue said, writing frames and more discussion. Excellent. And adding more partner work, Tina. And Kyle said, using hand signals and partners. Terrific, Kyle. And let's see what we had up here. Kim said response cards. Remember, those holdups make huge differences, Kim. Deb says the writing frames would be useful. And Rory, I don't know the first name, more action responses. And Holly said I'll work using more gestures and a response card. Beautiful. More response cards, more gestures and partners from Ashley. Terrific. Tracy said number of fingers to show answers and vocabulary. Perfect. Loretta said core responses and hand gestures. Michelle said a response sheet. Love that response sheet and response cards beautifully. I'd like to use more hand signals like fist to five. And Alicia said gestures and structured partners. Jessica said I'm going to add more gestures. Excellent. More hand signals from Donna and thumbs up, thumbs down. Michelle said more hand signals. Excellent, excellent. Thank you, thank you. So you got a new one today for October 6th. That was just because we had to finish that up. This was on the additional skills of monitoring, giving feedback, and the pace of the lesson. And so oftentimes, we already have done that. Excellent. Oftentimes, it's useful to get a picture. So we're going to see a little video so that we can use it to talk about the monitoring and the feedback. So you need a piece of paper, though you're going to have different jobs every time we meet and we watch a video. So if you are last name A to L, your job is to write down what we call glows. So put on your paper the word glows. And you are going to list anything that you think is a very effective instructional practice. So you might say there's frequent responses. The teacher told the goal of the lesson. The teacher got the student's attention, whatever you would see as a effective instructional practice. And if you are M through Z, you are going to count opportunities to respond. So you are going to tally on your paper every time the teacher asks for a response. Write this word down, say the spelling of this word. And I chose this because even when we do something every day as a routine, for example, if we look at spelling and we look at the research on spelling, which says that even from kindergarten through 5th grade, that we should have a period for spelling instruction in our language arts period of time, maybe 10 to 15 minutes. Spelling is critical. You use it every day. It is a foundation skill to writing, often totally ignored and just prayed for, but it's useful to teach it. And the most useful thing is dictation, dictation of words and dictations of sentences. And every day we could use certain routines, but the words might change based on the words that we're teaching kids to read. We would also have involved in dictation. So this is a second grade class. And I chose it because I'd love us to have a period of time we're doing spelling, because they get better at spelling. Has a direct input, direct relationship to better reading, because decoding and encoding require the same skills. And it could also be a low prep part of your days. Other parts of your day, when you teach vocabulary, higher preparation, comprehension, higher preparation. But dictation is much gain for little outcome. And I love high outcome, low prep. Okay, so you know your job. You're either writing down glows or you are writing down, you are tallying every time the teacher asks for a response. Okay, short video, and then we will put the feedback when we're done in the chat box. All right. And okay, we are sharing this. We're going to be certain that we have our video up. All right. Okay, let me thumb up, Miss Loretta, if you see it. Yay. So this is, our other videos were like in New York and other places. This was actually a suburb of Portland, Oregon, Beaverton. Sweet children.
I'm looking back up here. So your first spelling word, leave your pencils down. I don't want to see anybody write until I tell you to. Oh, good. Yeah. Your pencils are down. Your pencils are down. Perfect. Everybody's got it down. So our first spelling word is the word open. Well, don't write. The first spelling word is the word open. What word, everyone? Open. So we can don't write. We can open the door. Fist in the air. Put your fist in the air. We're going to say each part in the word, each syllable. First part is O. Next part is pen. Say those parts as you write the word. Write open on your paper.
Today you'd use a document camera. All right.
Compare yours with your partner. Okay, check open. If it looks just like mine, great. If not, cross it out and rewrite the word. Okay, and don't erase it. Just cross it out. Let's say I had a letter I here. I'm going to cross it out and I will rewrite the word. So if you missed it, cross it out and rewrite it. Okay, and pencils down. Our next word is student. Don't write yet. Student. What word, everyone? Student. You are a student. Fist in the air. And first part, everyone, is stew. Next, oh, got to do it again. Everybody make a fist. I need everybody. First part is stew. Next part is dent. Write the word. Excellent job correcting that. Perfect. Okay, look at your word. Be sure it looks like the word student. And this is the word student. If you missed any letter, cross it out and rewrite it. I love the way people are rewriting their words. Okay, when you're done, put your pencil down. We're set. Okay, the next word is visit. What word, everyone? Visit. Fist in the air. And say each part, everyone. Viz it. One more time. Viz it. And say those parts as you write it. Go. Okay, look at the word. Be sure it looks like visit. Okay, now looking at it, if you missed any letter, like a number of you had, and wrong letter here, cross it out and rewrite it. Don't erase, but cross it out and rewrite it. Because I need to see what you wrote the first time. Okay, so everybody pencils down. So here is our sentence we're going to write. Everybody looking here, don't write till I tell you to. 7 ducks quack to music. 7 ducks quack to music. Say it with me, everyone. 7 ducks quack to music. On your paper, write the first part of the sentence, 7 ducks. When you have that much, put your pencil down. 7 ducks. And you have to write the word 7, not the number. You have to write the word for 7. Great. Listen to the next part. 7 ducks quack to music. The next part is quack to music. Say it, everybody. Quack to music. One more time. Quack to music. Write it on your paper. When you've written the sentence, put your pencil down. I know you're set. Now, this was a sentence, and you know how to show the reader that it's a sentence. So check it out to be certain that you've done what's necessary to show the reader that it's a sentence. For example, at the beginning, you need a what, everyone? A capital. At the ending, you need a period. Fix it up. Okay, so looking up here, get your pencil in your hand because we're going to give ourselves some points for writing it really carefully. So the first word was what, everyone? 7. Now, if you have a capital letter at the beginning of your sentence, above it, give yourself a tally mark to say, yes, I got a capital. And this is a spelling of 7. If you spelled it exactly like mine, give yourself a point. If not, cross it out and rewrite it. Fix up 7. Check it. Okay. And the next word, of course, was what, everyone? Ducks. Now let's look at this. We have the sound k, and it's made with what letters, everyone? CK. So if you spell ducks just like I did, give yourself a point. If you have CK, give yourself a point. If not, cross it out and fix it up.
Your K is a capital.
Carl, you know, I could make that a better K, couldn't I? You did. You did an excellent job. Okay, so our next word is quack. And here is the spelling of quack. If you spelled it that way, give yourself a point. And if you have CK at the end of quack, give yourself a point. If you missed it, cross it out and rewrite it. Well, a lot of us have to cross out quack and write it right above it. Good. Okay, and here we have the word what, everyone? Two. If you have it spelled as the correct two, give yourself a point. Last word was what, everyone? Music. Music. And if you spelled it just like this, give yourself a point. If not, cross it out and rewrite it. But I like the way you're not erasing. You're just crossing a line through it and rewriting it. And at the end, it needs a what, everyone? A period. Raise your hand if you added a period. Yes, give yourself a point for a period.
All right, so people who wrote down best practices, you are going to put your two best observations right now into the chat box. So add to the chat box. This was one good practice I noticed. This is another good practice I noticed. Add it there. And if you did opportunities to respond, don't add it yet, but that was 8 minutes long. So count up yours and divide it by 8. Okay, so I'm looking in the chat box for, don't put the number in yet, but I'm looking for what you thought were good practices. So let's open up the chat box and see your chats. And it says 23 new ones. And, you know, last time that I did a video, it was just showed me how observant you are and the level of knowledge that you have about instruction. It was very impressive. So let me just go up here to the first beginning. And okay, for all those people who added that, so Paula said the pace was pretty brisk. I agree with you. And the expectations were very clear about what they were to do. There was repetition and students had to look at their answers to be certain it made sense and to edit it. The students repeated the words that they wrote down, and yay, Tabitha, there was monitoring. So when the students were writing, I circulated and monitored, broke it down into small chunks. And that was necessary because holding the whole sentence may have been difficult for some of their working memory. So yes, it was broken down into parts. And Tina, exactly what we would want. If a response was requested, like spelling the word, there was immediate feedback after the students said the word. And yes, walking around the room, checking students' work. And yes, there was choral responses and repetition. Carol said that the students had to say the word, repeat the word, and write it. That was part of the routine. Excellent, Carol. Holly said there was clear directions, that clarity, immediate feedback. Loretta said that the routine was taught and used again and again with feedback to the group and to individuals. Paula said immediate feedback, moving around, looking, giving feedback, excellent. Repeating clear directions, immediate feedback. Donna, immediate feedback, beautiful. And reminding them, Rob, not to start writing before they've actually heard the word to ensure they knew what the word was. And so maybe you've taught spelling, but that is the battle. Immediate feedback, repeated directions, choral responses, excellent observations. So if you had a number per minute, would you pop that into the chat box? So if that was your last name, add it. And so I wanted to check out I took data too, to check my data, and let's see, 3.125, about 3 per minute. And another one about 3 to 4 per minute. And let's see if anybody else adds their data. 4, 4, 4, 4. Okay, we're thinking it's around 4. Okay, and 3 to 4. But remember, for short, quick responses, that sort of the sweet spot for those expert teachers was between 3 to 5. And I actually had 6 per minute, because I counted not just academic responses, but responses that were meant to keep them in the lesson, like put your pencil down, look up here, any kind of request of the teacher for a response. But we're going to give it 4. And we would say that was right in the range that we wanted. So you can later read the feedback that I gave this teacher, but you already came up with the big ideas. And so I'm going to skip down. This is for your own feedback. There was clarity, many opportunities to respond, but most importantly for rest of our time, there was monitoring and circulating. Walk around, look around, talk around. And I gave feedback to the students in the whole group. And then I gave feedback to individuals as I monitored, including affirmative feedback, corrective feedback when they had an error. And I included here the routines I used, just to encourage you to replicate that little dictation of words, regular words that you're teaching that reflect the decoding that you're teaching, and also sentences, so that we could work on getting the spelling generalized to actual writing. But also it gives us a great opportunity to work on capitalization, punctuation. So let us not forget that even simple lessons like this need opportunities to respond, need monitoring, and need feedback. So we are going to look at, once again, in our remaining time, those aspects of not just frequent responses, but monitoring and feedback. And the fourth one, you remember, was the pace. So if we looked at monitoring, I know that you monitor. So I'm just sort of going to polish up your practice with some things to watch for. And the same with feedback, because in the last 2 weeks since we met before, I have actually had the opportunity to, let me see how many, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I've watched 36 elementary teachers teach virtual lessons and gave them feedback as I trained principals to do walkthroughs. And so I became even more aware of some things that we need to do to polish up our monitoring and feedback. So let's start with monitoring. That's one of our elements. Monitor student performance closely. And basically, on our first day together, we looked very briefly at monitoring. That the type of monitoring we would do is dependent on the response we are requesting. If I'm requesting a response from the whole group and to say something together, I want to listen to all of the students, but particularly attend to the students that are struggling more at risk. And if they are telling an answer to a partner, that's the time where I want to circulate and monitor. Listen to what they're saying to partners and look at it. And if I call on individuals, I'm going to listen carefully to their answers when I monitor. If they have a holdup, I'm going to look at their responses. If it's written responses, again, I don't just stand in front of the class. I give them a clear directive. I stand there as they get going. And when they're writing, then I move out and circulate. And if it's an action response, like a gesture, I'm looking. So the response would be the natural one. But what do we have to consider about monitoring? Well, here's some polishing. Taking our practice up a notch in terms of monitoring, listening, and looking carefully. Now, of course, when they are writing or sharing with the partner or doing some type of, like maybe they're doing some kind of artwork, I'm going to be circulating. If they are creating something in science, I'll be circulating. And I will beeline it to more struggling students initially so I can give feedback to them to get them be certain on the right task. And I need to be certain that I'm monitoring all students. That is what I noticed as I watched the videos, that teachers would move out to monitor individuals, but some of them went to the same children again and again and again. For example, one teacher had the classroom organized in rows where the students were facing the teacher. Good job. And when she asked them to write something down, she waited a moment and then moved out to monitor. But every time she went to her dominant side and monitored. Well, 3 children were well monitored and 27 not at all. And she just constantly did the same monitoring. So we have to be certain that we monitor throughout the classroom. Not every time there's a written response, but we might monitor to the right, then to the left, then to the right and to the left, or to the front and the back. Something that will help us ensure that we're connecting to more students. And when we monitor, there's more that we should be thinking about than just academic feedback. So as I looked at it, most teachers are focused on the responses of the students. As I did in that video, I was looking at the spelling of their words, but there's other things we're thinking about. For example, do they understand the task? Now here, the directions were so clear that they understood, but I am looking to see, do you know what we're supposed to do? Do you know? Do you know? Do you know? And as we monitor, we're also monitoring their on-task behavior. We might need to move over closer to some students and utilize physical proximity to help them make a new decision. I'm also asking myself, are there potential management problems beginning to emerge? For example, one teacher said, you have 2 minutes to complete this sentence. Most of the students were done way before 2 minutes, and behaviors began to emerge. But the teacher had set the time and waited 2 minutes, and by then had students throwing things at each other, getting out of their seat, So we are using eyes to see if things are going to escalate. We take care of it more quickly, regain their attention, and move on. Just remember this. One of my biggest mottos in terms of behavior management is avoid the void, for they will fill it. So for that reason, I usually don't give them a certain amount of time. Instead, I am monitoring and circulating. And so as I monitor and the majority of students are finishing up the task, I'm going to step back in front of the room, back to the teaching arena, and regain their attention. So let me tell you, this is a thinking person's game. I'm looking at your responses. Do you understand the task? Are you on task? Are behavior problems emerging? Are we finishing up the task? All of this is information that we're collecting so that we can keep the pace moving along and have no behavioral challenges. Monitoring. But do you know, we took data on elementary teachers, not you, but other elementary teachers, and many of them do not move out and monitor. They just stand at the front of the room and they don't use the time to monitor. And yet, what better time to establish teacher-student relationship? Because we're going to use that data also to adjust the lesson. Can I go forward? Do I need to reteach? Do I need to give this time? So monitor, monitor. And then when we have to circulate, do what Stan Payne says, walk around, look around, talk around. Don't just cruise. We had some teachers who just cruise. They got their 10,000 steps in, but they didn't look at the work and they didn't give feedback. So all three of these, walk around, look around, talk around. Say it with me. Walk around, look around, talk around, which I believe was the best practice in that spelling lesson. All right, so feedback. So read it with me as a reminder. Provide immediate, affirmative, corrective, and informative feedback. And so affirmative is praise, corrective is there's an error, I'm going to correct it, and informative is there's many ways that we could improve your practice, but this is the one that you need to attend to. Informative. So let's polish up, because I know from the excellent of your answers up to now that so much of this you're doing. So this is just a polish of your practice. So in that video, they wrote down a word and I gave feedback to the whole group. And I showed them the spelling word, because feedback and spelling should be always visual. They have to see it. You could have them spell it, but they have to see it and spell it. You would never give feedback like, that word is spelled V-I-S-I-T. You cannot translate that into what does the word look like? What changes do I need to make? But you could say, here is the word visit. It is spelled, spell it with me, V-I-S-I-T. And that feedback to the whole group affirmed some. And it wasn't on this video, but two little boys over in this corner who were talking and just high-fived when they got it right. So it affirmed for them that they got it right. It could, if you got it wrong, say, ooh, I left out that I have to cross it out and rewrite visit. So it could affirm or it could correct. We can also give feedback as we're moving around the classroom. And so one girl I praised, I gave affirmative feedback. I encouraged a number of them to continue writing. And I corrected an error when the student spelled quack and left out ah. So we're moving around and it's either praise, encourage, or correct, which we call peck, peck, peck. as we walk around, look around, talk around, and give feedback to individuals. So polishing up the feedback. And first, every time we ask for a response, we give feedback. That's the law. Every time I ask for an academic response, we're going to get feedback. And it's going to be clear so that I can improve my performance. And I'm going to give it to the entire group. But I can also give it to individuals as I'm circulating quietly and privately, give them feedback. And it could be affirmative. It could be praise to the whole group. It could be on behavior or academics. It could also be affirmative praise to individuals. And in many cases, it could be just a thumbs up. It could be a smile. Other times, it could be specific praise. Excellent job, crossing out the word and rewriting it. And we could also give informative feedback. Now, this is where there is something you can do to improve your response. There might be many behaviors involved in the task you're doing, but this is the one you can focus on. And that feedback needs to be clear. And based on what I've taught you, so that you will know how to use the instruction or the feedback. Now, I used this example. We had it earlier, because, but, so. And they were writing sentence with because, but, so, and they had a little rubric. Complete sentence, it had to make sense, it had to have a capital, punctuation, spelling, and be neatly done. And since I taught it recently, that example I showed you, and this was their answers, there's their rubric, they had to check it off. But my feedback to them differed based on their answer. For example, one student had this answer. It was actually a beautiful answer. However, the handwriting was such that I couldn't read it with ease. So I told the child, this is a great answer. You have a why answer to because. What you need to do is work on writing on the lines to make your handwriting, Megan, more understandable to the reader. When I went to Henry, Henry had this exact sentence. You saw the edited one earlier. And so we read it. The Alice. Can you check the spelling of that word? And is an amazing show, but it only occurs every few years. What do we have to do in terms of punctuation before but? A comma. So the feedback here was informative for Henry, different than for Megan, and different for Marcus, who had an incomplete sentence.
Dr. Archer, I don't mean to interrupt, but I'm sorry to interrupt. It is time.
Oh no. Can I just throw out one more thing and then we'll stop?
Sure.
That's it. Because corrective feedback. Actually, Loretta, this is to me the most important new idea I've learned in the last 19 months of COVID. And that is new research on when there is only one answer and the students get it incorrect. And the research there shows, because we would used to tell teachers, either tell them the answer or guide them to the answer. And now we know that basically, if they make an error and there's only one answer, we should always start by telling them the answer and having them repeat it, and then repeating the item and doing it again. So next time I will give you more information on this, but it is to give them errorless learning. So they've done a math problem going many steps Many of the students had the wrong answer, so we start right out by saying the answer is 56. What's the answer? 56. Now, let's do that item again together. No matter what the problem is, if there's a right answer, we tell them so they know where they're going. They know it's errorless learning. Well, I am so sorry that I did not look at my watch because I was in a roll. And it would be okay, Loretta, you let me know. Perfect. But feedback feeds forward and is absolutely critical. So I'm going to say goodbye for now, but I do want you to know I added another video because a 5th grade teacher from one of your districts said, you showed us how to teach active participation to 2nd graders. Do you have a video showing how I could do that with older students in my 5th grade class? Well, the best I had was 7th grade. I'm sending you the video for anyone who might want to watch that video, and then you could look at the feedback that I gave you. So just for your edification, these are our future dates. And so I'm going to see you on vocabulary, but you're going to do one thing as your exit ticket today. I want you to put in the chat box a vocabulary term that you're teaching this week. Everybody can exit, but you're going to put in the chat box a vocabulary term that you are teaching this week. And may you have a lovely, lovely, lovely Wednesday evening. I'm going to hop over to Hawaii when we're done. Yep, I have a webinar in Hawaii. But if you are an administrator or a coach, you're hanging out with me as everybody else is exiting, and open up your cameras, everybody, as you exit, so I can say goodbye.